la Rigman non si siederà e anche Paul Guest non si siederanno. Sono io, lo puoi mettere qua. Se le vuole mettere qui, perché tanto quando Ciobanu dopo nella seconda parte, dopo di me parlerà.
We would like to start in time to be not really Italian. That's the aim. We are ready, Michaela? We can start, everything registered. So, good afternoon and welcome. I am Ms. Mene Tramontano. I am the director of the Italian Erasmus VET Agency. And welcome you. I would like to welcome you to Rome and to host the transnational cooperation activity contact seminar, networking to promote inclusion and diversity in Erasmus Plus, VET mobility and partnership. I bring you my greetings and my welcome, but also those from Andrea Simoncini from the Ministry of Labour and Social Policies, which is the national authority for the VET sector in Italy, and also on behalf of Mr. Natale Forlani, who is the president of the Italian Institute for Public Policies Analysis, which is a research institute where the Italian VET agency is located. So, again, welcome. The seminar, as you know, addresses the VET sector, but it is part of a multi-sectoral long-term cooperation activity called Inclusion for Newcomers, coordinated by the Romanian Erasmus Plus agency, and implemented by some other agency, the one of the Czech Republic, Greece, Italy, and Serbia. So thank you to everybody. This type of cooperation, as you know, among Erasmus Plus agency, aims at improving the implementation of the program and making it more strategic and impactful, of course. The long-term activity, Inclusion for Newcomers, aims specifically to support the participants with little or without any experience in the program to be able to develop quality applications for both mobility and partnership actions. Of course, addressing inclusion and diversity and involving individuals with fewer opportunities. The coordinator of this long-term activity is our colleague Nick Ciobanu, who will take the floor later on to explain more in detail the activities and the final aims and activities of this long-term activity. But before leaving the floor to my colleagues who will take you through the themes of the seminar and the activities, let me emphasize that through the activities we implemented as a long-term activity partners, we aim to increase the number of VET students and professionals with the few opportunities who participate in mobility activities, but also to support the planning and development of educational tools and the training paths for the really full participation of people with fewer opportunities, in the VET sector especially. And I am proud to tell you that this is the main aim of our Italian VET agency, because we think that in the VET sector, more than in others, the participation of fewer opportunities is really a challenge, because in Italy, but I know that in most European countries, fewer opportunities, students are more concentrated. Let me tell you that this is the main aim of our agency since 2019, and last year, in 2023, we have a rate of 26% of students with fewer opportunities participating in mobility actions. So it's a very, for us, is a very result, and we are proud of it. And I am proud as well to host today 18 countries. So again, we are very happy and proud of this. I thank all of you to being present, because we believe in inclusion, and for wanting to share with us the aim of this long-term activity. Let me thank you, everybody, and especially some people. Please, sorry, before leaving the floor to my colleagues, I want to thank, first of all, our inclusion officer on my right, Mrs. Franca Fiacco, our TCA officer Loredana Ceccacci. I must say that both has worked very hard to realize this, but also the communication unit of our agency, in particular Michela. She will be everywhere these days, so you will see her in the back side of the room, but she will be everywhere. And with the coordinator of the unit, Stefania Pinardi. And then Franceschina Franchi, who is also a colleague from our institute, cooperating with us for this event. And then I must thank the Romanian agency and the interpreters, of course. We have wanted this kind of interpretation because we are in the right framework. And so last but not least, the interpreters. But the last, but really not the least, is our friend and expert Paul Guest, who will make it easy. Everything will be easier thanks to Paul, and lighter. So thank you, Paul. So enjoy these 3 days, and I give the floor, I think, to Christine, who will be the facilitator of these 3 days. So, Christina, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, that's it. That's it. We need a bit of energy for today. Are you ready? Yes. Excellent. Benvenuti in Italia.
Great.
So,
Ottimo.
I'm Cristina, and I'm working as a trainer for the Romanian National Agency. And one of my tasks in the trainer's pool is to facilitate events and give trainings for people like you. So these 2 days, we're going to go together through a very exciting program, which involves some work from your side. Are you ready to work? Yes. Excellent. Lovely. Before we move on with introducing you to the topic and the outcomes of this event and the agenda and everything else, we would very much like to know a little bit more about who is in the room. So let's see, who is for the first time in Italy? Please stand up. Who is visiting Italy for the first time? No, please stand up, please, please. Yay, benvenute in Italia, signore. Thank you very much. Who is for the first time in Rome? Ah, ecco. Ecco. Enjoy Rome, ladies. After the agenda, of course. Good. Let's see who is a teacher. Oh. We are very thankful to the teachers for teaching our children everything they need to know. Thank you very much. And who is staff of a national agency? Look here, we have a lot of support. Yes, cheer up for the staff. Okay, I must have missed some categories because there are some people who are still sitting down. Yeah. So help me. Project managers. Let's see, project managers. Who is a project manager here? Lovely. Okay, thank you very much. And in addition to project managers, apart from Nick, who is from the agency, we have a few men here, and they never stood up, so I don't know. Trainers, let's see. Any trainers around? You only wanted us to stand up. Thank you very much. So, trainers, 2 men and a lady. Okay. Let's see, but I still see some men here, and you did not stand up. So, what are you? Project designers. Oh my. Okay. So, project managers, project designers. What are you? Teacher. Okay, teacher.
Already
Good.
done.
Teacher. Teacher? Project manager? Okay.
There should be some psychologist, isn't it?
Psychologists. Okay. Please stand up. Any psychologists? Finally, I got it right. I will go to a psychological session, okay, after this, just to compensate for not thinking about psychologists. Lovely. So it is nice to see that you are all gathered here today and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. And we are going to start our session with an introduction on the general topic, objectives of this event. The first speaker that we are going to connect remotely is Vittoria Spinelli from DG Education and Culture, and she's going to share with us some data about inclusion and Erasmus from an intermediary evaluation report. Just to mention that we are live streamed, broadcasted on the internet, so we are getting watched by many, many people who were not able to be here today, but are able, thanks to technology, to follow what we are discussing here. So let's see if we can get Vittoria connected. Here she is. So hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, we can see you, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. And if you want to know which is my category, I place myself under the category of the poor civil servants trying to make things better.
Excellent, we're happy to have you.
It's not said that I will succeed, but at least I will try. This is for sure. So, first of all, let me say that I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon. Of course, I would have preferred to be in Rome with you, but okay, Brussels was quite nice to me, and I had a nice weather today, so I cannot complain too much. And let me also thank our colleagues from the Italian national agencies who organized this event and gave me the opportunity to participate in this networking event. Well, when we talk about inclusion and diversity in Erasmus+, we have already said, I have already said in many, many occasions that inclusion and diversity is a top priority. It was a top priority throughout the co-creation process of the current Erasmus+ program and throughout its implementation, of course. The program is aiming to be fully inclusive and to increase the share of participants with fewer opportunities. And this is particularly important for the sector of vocational education and training, as it plays a vital role in facilitating social inclusion by bringing participants who are facing obstacles and barriers closer to the labor market, and therefore they are boosting capacity building, innovation, and cooperation. During the implementation of the program, a lot has been done in this regard since the publication of the framework of inclusion measure and the inclusion and diversity strategy, through the different measures put in place, like the increased financial support, the different mobility formats that have been made available. And all of this is thanks to the common effort provided by the European Commission together with the national agencies, their wonderful network of inclusion officers, and of course with the support of the two circles for inclusion and diversity. But at the same time, we are aware that there is a long way ahead, that things can be improved, and much more needs to be done to expand this dimension and remove the remaining obstacles. What is sure is that we will spare no efforts to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the program. As you know, the Commission is closely monitoring the effectiveness, the performance of the program, and the delivery of the inclusion measures. And we are now at a turning point of this process. We are now actually in the full midterm evaluation phase, which is actually combined with the final evaluation of the previous programs. This exercise is still ongoing. It has been an extensive exercise. It started back in July 2022 with a call for evidence, and then continued with a lot of consultation. There was a public consultation through which we received more than 1,200 replies, contributions, position papers. Almost 50,000 participants were consulted through targeted surveys. There has been 250 interviews, 45 case studies, so really an impressive exercise, which, as I was telling you, is still ongoing. But this will serve as a basis, because the outcomes and recommendation will be used to improve the current program, and of course will feed into the impact assessment for the next generation after 2027. And now let me share with you a few slides. Just let me know if you are seeing them correctly.
Yes.
Is that okay?
Can you make a presentation on the bottom?
Yes.
Great.
Is that fine? Thank you so much. Okay, so before we start, as I was telling, the evaluation exercise is still ongoing, and these are really preliminary findings, as final results will only be confirmed once the work is finalized. That's why I will already tell you now there will be very, very few figures in it, because we are still in the analysis phase. So, as concerns some general preliminary findings, we found that there is a broad support for the program, its objectives, structure, and action. Apparently, this is pretty much appreciated and quite clear. And of course, Erasmus Plus is now a well-known brand. It's appreciated. It's known by our stakeholders. The concept of the priorities is also found as very relevant. And throughout the implementation, we have made a lot of efforts and a lot of progress in promoting these horizontal priorities. And in particular, the work for inclusion and diversity seems to be very well advanced. And of course, the program also helps with a positive impact on promoting democratic values and participation. As concerns participation, we are really the program is making significant efforts to increase the participation, to remove barriers. The program offers mechanisms of funding to remove these barriers and support the priority of inclusion and diversity. And the activities are always paying significant attention to including people with fewer opportunities. What we have noticed is that most of the staff that is participating in the program already comes from institutions that are used to work with people with fewer opportunities, and therefore they already have a variety of educational strategies to be put in place. So we continuously monitor and report on the program, and the data that we already have at the moment is that, for instance, 15% of participants under Key Action 1, so we are talking about mobility, all sectors included in the 2021-2023 period were people with fewer opportunities. This trend is quite stable but slowly increasing over the course of the 3 core years. And there is an increase that seems to be going in the direction of 16% for 2024, but this can only be confirmed at a later stage. Of course, it's not very easy. There are many, many challenges, one of which is the identification, the consistent identification of participants with fewer opportunities. Many organizations, they don't know how to identify participants as part of these categories. Sometimes there is a reluctance to label, to stigmatize some certain groups, or sometimes it's just a challenge of identifying in an accurate way the target groups. In addition, there are variations, national context, reporting experience that can contribute to the difficulties in detecting fewer opportunities in an efficient way. The program, we have seen, is having a range of positive impacts on most participants with fewer opportunities. And the impact is more or less the same, and there is no variation depending on the field. The general impression is really positive. And what is even more important is that the program is also having a positive impact even on participants that do not belong to a category of people with fewer opportunities, because it increases their understanding of diversity and inclusion, and in general it may result in a positive behavioral changing towards this theme. So concerning the profiles of participants and organizations, so at the individual level, we have seen that the program attracts learners, staff with many, many diverse profiles. And there is a general satisfaction with the outreach of the program, but of course there is still the challenge of reaching those hard to reach groups, like for instance, people living in remote and rural areas. This is a challenge that requires more targeted outreach action. And there is also the problem beyond reaching out of attraction. Sometimes attracting may prove to be a challenge for those groups who are not only hard to reach but also unwilling to participate. This happens quite often because those groups, they simply think that the program is not for them. At organizational levels, we have seen that many stakeholders underline that difficulties of smaller size organizations to apply for funding and to implement projects, as they have fewer resources and of course are less equipped compared to bigger organizations that have already been in the loop for some time. However, there has been the introduction of smaller grants under the current program, and this is pretty much appreciated as it increased the access for newcomers and grassroots organizations. And now a few slides on the main barriers to participation. So first, we have seen that the barriers as they are defined in the program are quite relevant, and especially the relevance given to the economic and social barrier, and this provides good justification to the approach taken in the program in defining people with fewer opportunities. But it is also to be noted that obstacles are often cumulative, as participants often face more than one barrier at the same time. So there may be several barriers operating at the same time for a single participant. Economic obstacles are, of course, the most frequent barrier among participants. Financial barriers are often coupled to other barriers. And so here we see a need to consider the strong link between various difficulties the participants face in the context of participation in mobility program. These findings have confirmed the observation that we have received from several sources that financial barriers are frequent in hard to reach groups, such as people with disability, people living in rural areas, etc. Grant amounts were also mentioned as sometimes being insufficient to ensure equal access to the mobility program. And of course, over the last year, there was also the levels of inflation that raised and had a negative impact on people with fewer opportunities. and of course made mobilities to some countries more difficult because the cost of living there was higher. Support for traveling and other costs to participate, linked to participation in program activities were also sometimes considered as insufficient. And of course, increasing staff costs in the organization running activities was also taken into consideration. But here it is important to underline that the interviews were run before the new rules of the 2024 call were applicable. So many of these constraints were already addressed in the 2024 call. So there is this little discrepancy due just to the timing of interview and launch of the 2024 call. So all in all, our stakeholders, what do they tell us? They tell us that the current program seems to be responding better to the needs of the groups with fewer opportunities compared to the previous programming period. Our stakeholders also acknowledge and appreciate the efforts made to enhance inclusiveness, and our stakeholders consider the program as an inclusive program. At the same time, of course, no surprise, our stakeholders also advocate for more financial resources to improve this inclusiveness. So now, what happens next? I told you that was a long process starting in 2022. After the consultations, interviews, case studies, and of course the national reports that were recently delivered to us, we are analyzing all of this. A few days ago, we have received from our contractor a draft final report that now will need to be analyzed and finalized. In autumn 2024, this will be go through internal consultations, and by the end of this year, so by the end of 2024, the Commission's evaluation report will be sent to the European Parliament, Council, European Economic and Social Committee, and the Committee of Regions. And as I was mentioning a bit earlier, the conclusions of this evaluation will feed the preparation for the post-2027 programming period. So, as we are mentioning the post-27, just a little additional information is that the proposal for the new multi-annual financial framework after 2027 is to be presented by mid-2025. So it's in 1 year's time, but 1 year goes very, very fast. That is why we are gradually kicking off the work on the impact assessment, on the draft regulation, and the preparation of implementation. And especially during the impact assessment phase, there will be further consultation with stakeholders that will complement the consultation run for the evaluation, so that this co-creation process will continue to prepare for the implementation. Of course, we want to build on these successes for the next programming period and reinforce also our contribution to emerging priorities. This being said, of course, inclusion and diversity will remain a core priority, and we will be looking at how to step up efforts to broaden further its reach. So the consultation, of course, also called for some improvements, like further simplification or to give stronger visibility to the program and opportunities. And we are already working to improve this in the current program, but with in mind the idea of having this as primary focus when preparing for the next generation. And this is all from my side. I thank you for your attention, and do not hesitate to get in touch with us for further question, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Vittoria, because you are always available for us, and in general, the European Commission is in the last years more and more a support for the national agency for this priority, which is inclusion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us and for all the insights. I hope you found interesting ideas in these preliminary findings. I like to say that it's nice to evaluate every now and then what we do and learn out of it, because there are many times people who say, oh, I have 7 years of experience, but they actually have 1 year of experience, which is repeated 7 times, because they never stop to evaluate and learn. So doing the evaluations is really, really important so that we can learn out of how things are actually happening in the field. And that's lovely that everything will feed back into the new programs, which will hopefully respond better to the needs of the teachers, the psychologists, the project managers, the national agencies, and obviously the learners and the communities where they are. So let's move on in our introductory session to find out a little bit more about this event. We are going to hear from Franca here, and I suppose everybody has got at least an email from Franca, right? So she is going to walk us through the goals of this event and also the expected outcomes, because you declared yourselves ready to do a bit of work. So there is an expectation that something will come out of this event. So Franca, over to you.
Thank you, Cristina. Posso avere la mia presentazione, per favore? Grazie. So, first of all, thanks to Ismene and thanks to Vittoria for their introduction. Thanks to Cristina for such energizing introduction. And I will be a little bit boring, I'm sorry, because my task is to introduce you in the work that we are going to do for the next 2 days. And first of all, I want to share with you the objectives of these contact seminars. I hope so.
Push the switch on the side, on off. On the side there is an on off.
No. So, just to be proud, as has been said, is that we are 18 European countries represented in this room today. And as I said, the objectives of the seminar correspond to the objectives of the European inclusion strategies. So, to increase the number of young people with fewer opportunities join to the mobility activities, to design and develop educational tool and pathway for fewer opportunities, learners and staff, to increase the number of newcomers. And some of you, most of you, are real newcomers, namely organizations which have very poor experience or non-experience in Erasmus Plus program. Another important aspect of this seminar is to identify which will be the expected added value for you as participant to the seminar, but participant to the program. So to acquire a better understanding of inclusion topic and in its connection to the rest of the priority of the program, mainly digital transformation. To understand how to design inclusive practices in order to increase the access to education of people with fewer opportunities. To establish and expand your networking, your knowledge of the program, and to increase the number of applications under inclusion and diversity priority. As you know, we have organized the seminar in 3 different workshops, and each workshop will be devoted to a topic, a specific topic, and to a specific action of the program. As far as the workshop 1, access to mobility for target groups with cognitive, sensory, and physical disability, is a workshop in which we would like that you will exchange ideas in order to develop project proposal under K Action 1 involving people with disabilities. Because we noticed that, as you can see in the table, there are still few projects involving people with fewer opportunities. And I have to underline that these numbers are not refers directly to people with disability, but with the big categories of people with fewer opportunities. And in the workshop, we would like that you will concentrate your ideas on people with disabilities. The second workshop will be inclusion of refugees, especially Ukrainians. So the discussion will be on refugees, but we would like that you will concentrate on refugees from Ukrainians. The European Commission has identified the priority 7, which is addressed specifically to this target. And this project should be aimed to implement, sharing, and promote inclusive pedagogical approaches, as well as development of practices, as well as including practices for that addressed to this target of people. These are the number of the projects which have been financed under VET for people coming from Ukrainians. As you can see, the total number of financed projects since 2023, so since the existing of the priority 7, are still very poor. And the idea is to increase the number of projects addressed to the Ukrainian refugees. The workshop 3 is digital inclusion in the VET. Sorry, I forgot to underline that under this workshop, we invite you to develop idea under K Action 2, so partnership project. The third workshop is called digital inclusion in the VET sector. And what we want to underline is that digital transformation in education, when you think about digital transformation in education, we have to consider how digital technology can be used for improving and for increasing the access to education of people with fewer opportunity, but at the same time, how existing digital inequalities can undermine equity, can support the education system and the education system access of people with fewer opportunities. Also in that case, in this table are shown the number of projects which has been financed, which put together the two priorities, inclusion and digital transformation. And as you can see, the number are very, very low. So to increase the number of project proposals that match these two priorities. And now we'll just introduce you in the organization of the workshop. We will have two plenary sessions. One is the moment that we are living now, and one at the end of the seminar. The third day, we will have a final session, plenary session. But the most of the work will be done tomorrow. Tomorrow, you will be divided into workshops, and in the workshop, you will be divided in working groups, invited to develop project idea. You will be invited to fill in some templates which will guide you in developing an application. So in the template, we have put all the main aspects that have to be considered when you develop a new project proposal. In this slide has been organized the working group because tomorrow morning, since the beginning, you will work in workshops. You will have an inspiring moment in which some colleagues will present you a project proposal that have been financed and will show you how can be translated into application an idea in the 3 topics of the seminar. Then, in the small working group, you will work on filling in some templates that we have prepared for you, and we will be supported by the staff of DNA, which will be there for you, for introducing you to the application and to provide you all the support that you need for preparing an application. The first template has been called Step 1, and Step 1 will go through the main issue considering when you have to think about a new proposal. So you have to think about which will be your target group, which will be the needs of this target group to which you want to address your proposal, which will be the sector in which you are going to work, but also which kind of activity you are going to develop in order to reach the idea that you want to perceive. The step 2 will go in deep to a proposal. So in this moment, that will be in the afternoon, you will be invited in think about in a more detail the idea, but also the kind of impact that the idea intends to provide to the sector, to the education and training system, to your target. The template has been developed in order to consider the different applications for K1 and K2. The last day, on Thursday morning, you will be invited to present your idea. So after working all the day long of tomorrow on your idea in small working group, you will have to think about how to create a presentation in order to inform all the people which kind of work you have done, what kind of proposal you have developed, which will be your target, which will be the impact, an idea on what kind of work you have done. I'm used to close my presentation with this sentence. Diversity is being to be invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Franca. So who is ready to dance with us? You're all invited to dance, right? Excellent. Thank you so much, Franca, for walking us through the days. This is what we have prepared for you. As any event ever that you have attended, as much you will get out of this depends on as much as you put into it. So we really count on your engagement in this. I'll tell you a secret. You might leave with half the project done from this event, right? So how cool is that, right? You are just ready to put it in the form and click apply. So it's up to this level that you can get, and we really are, we're having here a big team of people from NAs who are ready to support you. Now we're moving closer, one step closer to the content of this event, and I'm happy to introduce Nick, my lovely colleague from the Romanian National Agency, who is going to talk about the inclusion for newcomers. He will tell us what is this LTA about and what is it in for us, the newcomers in the program. Nick, the floor is yours.
Possiamo avere la presentazione Nikusor Ciobanu.
Well, I already put my dancing shoes, so I'm ready to start this challenge Franca just launched. Thank you very much for introducing me. I'm going to stay here, close to my name, but not there, because I'm not feeling so formal. Either way, first of all, I just want to say thank you to our hosts today. Istituto Nazionale per l'Analisi delle Politiche Pubbliche. I hope that I pronounced it well.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Nick.
I know that it is a huge effort, and this is the reason for saying thank you to Madam Director, to Franca, Loredana, and the whole team. You did an amazing job. Thank you for our interpreters here. On my right, you already did, and for sure you will do an amazing job, and greetings for that. Well, secondly, I just want to say thank you to my national agency colleagues being here today or involved in selecting you, because they do a lot of job in their offices, and I'm part of them. I'm also an inclusion officer as Franca. I'm a TCA officer. I'm a communication officer, a green officer, a lot of officers' hats over my head.
How many officers?
Well, yeah, but still, today I'm not alone representing the national agency from Romania. Nadia, my colleague, is back in there, and you'll have the chance to meet her these days. Anyway, thank you for selecting these participants, and thank you for joining this activity. But finally, I think the most important thank you goes to you, the participants. You took your time to be part of this activity, even though it's Rome. Still, it's an effort to leave all your tasks to join this activity, but I'm sure that is going to be a great activity for you. Part of my thank you goes because you are our inspiration. Us as national agencies sitting in our chairs, in our offices, in Bucharest or Rome or wherever our national agencies are based, reading your projects or your reports or some statistics is something about inclusion, but the real efforts, the grassroots realities are those faced by you. And thank you for choosing to share these realities these days, because I'm sure that is going to be an inspiration for us. It's motivation for us, and I'm sure that Franca knows how it works. It's extremely important to receive feedbacks from you that the project changed the lives of your pupils, your staff, your target groups within your organizations, and this is what makes us going further. Regarding the big umbrella activity, this event is organized. It's called First Step First, because being newcomers or less experienced in Erasmus Plus should start from something, and baby step, a small initiative like being here today. Like sending an email to maybe a future partner within your project about stealing some practices you are going to hear these days. These are some important steps, and we should go from somewhere. Well, before jumping into my presentation, and I assure you that is going to be part of the Padlet, so it's not necessarily to take some pictures, also to take some notes, but being newcomers, and this is maybe our fault, let's call like this a fault, because we will be using some different terminologies for you, like LTA, which stands for long-term activity, or like TCA, or like Key Action 1, or like Key Action 2, and so on. This might be a part of being all day long dealing with these concepts for us as NA staff, but my kind request to you is to not to be ashamed of asking each time you don't know one terminology. Maybe you should note it, or just raising a hand and asking about this, because for me personally and for my national agency, the idea of good learning experience is not necessarily to receive all the answers, but even to ask the proper questions. So my proposal to you is to ask questions each time you have it. Use the coffee breaks to come to us, to approach us in order to clarify some aspects, and for sure we'll do it. Well, coming to this event, we are part of it these days. In 2021, when the new programming period between 21 to 27 of Erasmus Plus started, the European Commission, and Vittoria mentioned before, launched an European strategy for inclusion and diversity with a long name anyway. It was that need that inclusion and diversity should have a more strategic approach in Erasmus+. The good part was the fact that in Romanian National Agency we started this approach back in 2016, so we have some experience with dealing with inclusion, but this is also a mention that I always try to put on the table. It's also about diversity, because it is also a matter that should be addressed in our activities and in our projects, because we are diverse in different ways. Well, when this new program started, we had this strategy for inclusion and diversity, and we had to create things as national agencies. In that moment, a part of having this strategic document, and I will also share it in Padlet, it's in English, you can consult it. We, in our national agency, we said that maybe we should address in our training and cooperation activity approach this a priority. This is the reason we decided to address newcomers or less experienced as you are, considering the fact that the Croatian National Agency is running another long-term activity for experienced beneficiaries, and I'm sure that in 1 year or two you are going to be on that side of the story. You'll be experienced in Erasmus Plus and also in inclusion and diversity. Well, we started with creating one action plan that time. Most of our activities supposed to organize training and training courses, contact seminars, like this event. We hosted one activity in Romania to pilot it, to see how it works. It was a huge success actually, and we had a lot of participants. Many of them applied for Erasmus Plus support after that training course. The idea was going on further on with our partners. The next year, the Greek National Agency and the Serbian National Agency decided to organize similar activities in their countries with newcomers from different other countries in the world. And now INAP hosts this seminar, and I think this year is a special one in terms of cooperation with Italy. We had a huge history in the past, but still, after this seminar in Rome in September, we'll be cooperating with Indire, the other national agency in Italy, for another seminar in Sicily for school and adult education organizations, and I'm looking forward to that seminar too. So this is, in a few words, our approach. But in my next slides, you will see the particularities of this kind of activities. Because during these 2.5 days, we can't have the, I don't know, this big dream to you to apply in October, when it's going to be the first deadline in Erasmus Plus, or in next spring. We will offer our support further on. This is just the beginning of what's going to happen under this long-term activity. Well, as I told you, we did address through these training courses. Christina was part of this very first activity in 2022 that time. We invite participants from school, adult and vocational education and training sectors. By the way, VET, because you've heard about this, stands for Vocational Education and Training, which is one sector in Erasmus+, and many of you are part of this sector. We received, we hosted around 40 participants. We received more than 20 applications after one training course, and around 9 or 10 out of them were receiving funds. So it was a huge success that time. This is the reason we wanted to continue with this kind of approach. But now in this concept, and this is somehow connected with Vittoria's intervention, with Franca's, and with my next speaker's interventions, we wanted to see where is inclusion in this big approach. Even you do represent inclusive schools, or special schools, as we call it, for instance, in Romania, meaning that your pupils or your direct target groups are facing one types of barriers. Even you will address, you are like a regular school or high school or regular organizations, but you will identify as an objective or as the thematics of your project being inclusion or diversity. This is how we see inclusion ID. This abbreviation stands for inclusion and diversity. This is how we perceive ID as being part of Erasmus Plus projects. So you can address this topic in different perspectives, how to speak about and how to motivate, how to raise awareness about different barriers in your organizations or in your communities. This can be one approach. And the other one can be the fact that you are an inclusive organization and you should and you have to have this inclusive approach by selecting participants with different barriers. But of course, firstly, you have to identify these barriers, and Franca mentioned some of them. So this is how we have envisaged this approach. And as specific objectives, and your task is to support us in reaching these objectives, is to increase the quality and the number of the future projects coming from newcomers, but also we want to provide the space and the context to I use this word, to steal practices, and personally I prefer not to use good practice, because what is good for me might not be good for you. But these days and in all our activities we present practices, former projects implemented by people like you. Once they've been also newcomers, now they are practices in this international context, and tomorrow you will have the chance to meet them in your working groups. So the aim of these long-term activities is to present you some practices, to present you people like you that took the courage to step into Erasmus Plus world, and maybe, and why not, to create networks of professionals. We'll have the contacts, and thank you, Franca, for organizing this amazing Padlet, where you had the chance to create your profile. After this activity, when you'll go back home in your organization, and probably and hopefully you will try to write a project. For one type of the project in Erasmus Plus, you will need a partner. You will say, aha, during the coffee break, I met this organization from Italy or from Czech Republic, and he or she can be my partner because I met her or him in person. He was selected by his national agency, so I have the trust to cooperate with that person I've met in Rome. So this is also part of our objectives. What we did and what we plan to do in this long-term activity approach as a national agency, of course, is to start by mapping no experience or newcomers organizations. Romania and Italy, we are big countries, and we need to know about you. You know, sometimes, as I said, we are sitting in our offices, we have this task from the Commission, you need newcomers in the program, but where to find them? So we need to hear about you, and we need to identify you and to promote you the opportunities. We organize national activities, and I know that Franca does a lot with her team in this sense in order to promote Erasmus+, its opportunities for you, and we do the same in our countries for sure. We organize these type of international activities because you need Erasmus+ as a core is about learning, but in an international context, because you know we do not have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to go somewhere in one country in Europe to see that the solution for our problem might be there. It's important, and Erasmus+ supports that, to interact with that solution, to import it in your organization or in your community, and to adapt it to solve your need. This is the core, in one phrase, what Erasmus+ means for me, for instance. And now coming about the support I was mentioning you about, after this activity, and in October, again, it's the last deadline for submitting several types of projects in Erasmus+. Franca will send to you in September some information and some connection links in case you would like to apply with a project by 1st of October. You can meet some of my colleagues from the Romanian National Agency to receive feedback on your project idea, to receive feedback on your partnership maybe, and we will replicate this initiative prior to each deadlines in 2025, in spring and autumn in general. So this is a part of our support, and we are super excited to offer it. Some insights and highlights coming from the previous experiences in Romania, Greece, and Serbia, and I'm sure that is going to be part of this activity too. It's important for you as newcomer or less experienced maybe, let's put it like this, maybe your organization is a partner in a project coordinated by another country. You are not fully engaged in coordinating and managing the project, so you don't know all the kitchen tips and tricks from implementing a project. So it's important for us, for you, to understand the philosophy of Erasmus+, to understand the difference between a mobility project and a partnership project, to understand how, where, and when you will need partners and how to identify them, and so on. This is the things we want to be revealed and somehow clear for you. We want you to understand what's the mechanism of implementing an Erasmus+ project. You know, we have, being a communication officer, my task is to sell in nice words Erasmus+, but of course it has its specificities. It's important to have some competencies like project management, financial competencies, not proficient ones, but still. So we want you to understand how to interact with these specificities. As I said, the importance of seeing practices and good practices coming from other organizations. And I think one of the most important aspect is the fact that you can interact with us, any staff. You know, it's important to put a face over an email address. It's important to know that we are also humans. we have our doubts maybe, and it's important to interact with us during these days. And this is also a result of this activity. About the next steps, I already revealed what's going to happen next under this long-term activity. We'll have the seminar in Sicily in September, but as far as I know, tomorrow I will present you more specific plans and activities we want to implement under this long-term activity. What I can tell you for sure that we will not stop it here. Together, our partners from Europe will continue the support offered to you. Christina will be part of this support for sure, because we already have some plans to create very hands-on and very intuitive tools for you as newcomers. So stay close. Hopefully we'll have the chance to meet in the future after these days in Rome. And thank you again for being here and for your attention. Enjoy these days. Again, thank you to our hosts, and see you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Thank you so much, Nick, for walking us through again your long-term plans. I do remember First Step First, it was a training, very nice. There is a Facebook group, and I can still see activity. You know, those people have met, they have shared, oh, my project was approved, oh, my project was not approved. So, you know, there were lots of ups and downs on the group, but at least they kept in contact, and it was a good way to find partners. They would recommend each other, oh, I know somebody's interested in this. So it's nice to become part of this kind of communities, and these events are helping you to build a community of people that you can go to. Maybe they are not your suitable partners, but they know somebody, you know. Everybody knows someone that knows someone that knows someone, right? So that's a good way to find your way through, because as a newcomer, one of the fears is, where do I find partners? How do I know they are reliable? How do I sign an agreement and get into a financial venture with somebody I've never met or I found on a website? Or so it's a bit tricky, and it helps if you have seen the people face to face. You mentioned, Nick, several times the Padlets, and I want to know who has done the profile on Padlet. Let's see, hands up. You see, so all these people want to be found, right? They want to be found, they put their name, email, and contacts on the Padlet. It's nice to have as many as possible so we can reach out after the event is over, because we don't send around anymore lists of emails and phone numbers like we used to do. So nowadays, if you want to be found, you have to put yourself forward, and the Padlet is the way to do that. There is another Padlet with all the information and with all the presentations, so all the slides are already there, and it's easy for you to go back and consult and go back again to the information and get what you need from there. I think we're coming to the end of our first session. There will be a coffee break, and after that we come back to dive a little bit more deeper into the topic. We will have some insights and some work and some interactivity and some recorded inputs and, you know, and some details about tomorrow. So for now, thank you everyone who was involved in the first session. Thank you for surviving the first session. Enjoy the coffee, and we meet you back at 4:45 here.
Okay. Welcome back. Please take your seats. Some of you heard my name already. Shh, shh, shh. Thank you. Some of you heard my name already. The rest can see it here. Paul Guest, Orientra. And I have the wonderful task of following on day one, just after the coffee break, when everybody wants to relax. Huh? And now I have to introduce this wonderful topic. And I think there was a big title. I kind of ignored the title, but it was policy, expectations, lots of things. And I have to make it light enough that you understand the topic, the concept, why we are here, to set the scene, to create a baseline. So, we're going to go on a journey together, if you don't mind. And I have a piece of paper, I want to use my phone. At a certain point, you're going to use your phone. And the post-it notes and the flip charts will make it a little bit interactive. Yeah? Because, after all, this is education. So we have to get involved. If education is about stand and talk, I don't want to play. Yeah? So, why me? Well, I always wait until the day of the event and then decide what I'm going to say. And today I'm going to do it this way with 3 numbers. The first number is 32. 32 years ago, I got involved in international collaboration in education and training. And that was like 6 European funding programs ago. And I've been on that journey ever since, and I still love it. So why change it? But the idea is that, you know, along that journey, I've picked up some skills, some tips, some insight, some knowledge that I want to share with you today around the topic of inclusion. 35 is another number, and actually, so before I got involved in international collaboration in education and training, I was involved in vocational guidance. So vocational training, vocational guidance was at the heart of what I did even before I did the international thing. And this was about promoting vocational pathways as a strong alternative for those who don't want to, or don't have the capacity to, or the money to, in some cases, to follow academic pathways. And that's always been at the heart of what I do. And even today, 35 years later, I'm very passionate about promoting VET, vocational education and training. And the last one is 4. I can't even use 4 fingers. 4. 4 days ago, I put together some thoughts around where we are now. The danger with any presentation is that you keep adding to it right until the final moment. So at the end of last week, I said, okay, now is the time to put all these ideas into a quick set of slides. The good news is you don't need to write down anything, because you're going to get on the Padlet the same slide. Like you said, Nick, we're going to share these slides so you can come back to this. So that's, in a sense, what gives me the right to stand at the front and to share with you some thoughts. Because on a regular, on a day-to-day basis, I'm involved in promoting vocational education and training pathways and international collaboration, which is all about what we're doing. But I'm also going to take you a little bit on the journey of what I've been doing recently around inclusion and diversity. Sorry. I've got to be close. Oh, yeah, we're up now. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about inclusion in Erasmus+. Who are we talking about? Why is it important? What are we doing? When are we doing it? And with what purpose? How? This is the journey that we're going to go on. And the first thing I do is ask you to scan this QR code and answer one single question. This is a risk because I'm not in control. The guys at the back of the room, however, have got this Padlet open with one single question, which is, who are we talking about when we talk about inclusion? Because it's a very strange thing, inclusion. Who are we trying to include when we talk about inclusion? And I want you to think about this. Let me be very clear. I want you to think about this from your perspective. So not globally, not at European level, not Italian level, not even in Rome. We're talking about within your own organization or as an individual, the people that you work with. Who are we trying to include? So describe the audiences of individuals that would form the basis of any future or current inclusion activity. Who are these audiences that we've talked about under various headings? People with fewer opportunities. It's lovely, but what does it actually mean? Who are these audiences? Let's see if we can draw together a big list. Maybe we put on the answers and we get some inspiration. Maybe it's going to be an empty screen. Oh, everyone. Wonderful. That's absolutely, the best answer you could give in a sense, because I wonder at what point we all need a little bit of support. I was reading a paper this morning, and it was written by somebody who's, writing academic papers around the subject of inclusion and the ideology, and I think I will read it out. They wrote something down. It's in my phone here. Let's see. It's very small. But they wrote, so this is a disability theorist who claims that disability is an unavoidable outcome of living, and that there is no perfect body or mind, and there is no normal body or mind. In other words, no one is perfectly able. And I thought that was a very good start. That, we talk about disability, but a lot of discussions nowadays talk about differing abilities. And therefore, it's nice. My God, we've got lots going on here. This is everyone at the heart, which is great. VET is up there as well. We need to screenshot this one. Now, this is perfect for us. But then we dig deeper, and we talk about people with specific obstacles, specific needs, or specific needs for support. And this is good. So this is a wonderful starting point. So we have the bigger picture, the concept that at some point in our lives, we might all be in that position where we find ourselves in need of additional support. And that's important. But then, as we go through this event, we're going to start to think about how we can work with the specific audiences of individuals that you work with on a regular basis. And that might be something where we are looking at delivering mobility programs, where we're looking to build capacity amongst educators so that they can deliver better programs, or where we're looking to develop something very specific. And we will hear of some inspirational stories tomorrow in the 3 working groups, where we talk about what we can do in terms of development, collaboration, partnership, and exchange. So we set the scene wonderfully with this question. So let's go back. If we can go back to the slides, thank you very much. I'll screenshot that and drop it into the slides so you all get to see what we did. Okay. Let's see if this is, here we go. So welcome to the future. In a sense, it's, when we talk about inclusion, it's a very different thing. And I'm trying to see if there's a picture of a car here. There should be. I get lost in my own thoughts sometimes, and I started to think about this last week, and I was trying to conceptualize something in a vision. And the idea is that when we talk about inclusion, we assume it to be one thing that is static and permanent and never changing, and that's not the reality. So if we think about a car is just a car, right? But in the 1950s, you might have seen a car like this, and you knew what that car was and what it could do and what its abilities were. But in the 1960s, our expectations were different and our understanding was different. And by the time we go through the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, teens, and 20s, our expectations for cars are very different. The way that we describe a car is very different, and also the abilities of the cars are very different. Now they can talk to you, tell you where to go, make your cup of coffee, tell you to put down your phone, do lots of things. They even alert you when you're entering a speeding zone. So cars do very different things. It shows that they are not static. There is no such thing as a car that is continuing to be a car. And in our world of inclusion, we have to respect the fact that inclusion is not the same as it was in 1974. And so what we need to do is to think about inclusion in its modern guise, in its modern way of understanding. And here I refer to something that's already been mentioned numerous times already. It was mentioned in the Commission's opening speech. Nick will have referred back to some of these things. There are 2 documents that are very important. I've put the QR code at the bottom of this, so you can access this at any time. But this is the framework of inclusion measures for Erasmus Plus and the European Solidarity Corps, or the ESC. We're focusing specifically on Erasmus Plus and education, and so and VET, of course. But here, and it's very important, we talk about programs that need to be accessible for all. So we had that everyone at the beginning, and that's very important, accessible for all. That leaves nobody behind. Can we all say that we're doing that already? It's a difficult thing to live up to, leaving no one behind. Do we honestly conceptualize our audience before we design, or do we design and try and catch up? And so this is important. And therefore, there are 4 specific objectives. We talk about mainstreaming, inclusion and diversity as a cross-cutting principle so that we embed this into institutional practice. We talk about ensuring the offer of inclusive features and mechanisms within the Erasmus Plus program itself. And you've seen that mentioned already today. We talk about establishing a common understanding of who it is that we are talking about. So a car is not a car, it is something else. It is, we need to think about our expectations in terms of what we want from that. And finally, supporting organizations that participate in the program so that they can deliver a high quality but inclusive experience. And that's what we're here to do today and tomorrow and the day after. But we are just planting the seeds of hope today. And tomorrow you will water those seeds and try and grow something. We have, in addition, another strategy. Now, I thought one strategy was good, but there's another strategy. And this is quite interesting because this goes one brave step further. And that brave step is by trying to define in some manner. And I'm glad I didn't have to do it. Because as humans, we're very good at saying no, or highlighting the things that we don't like. And if somebody takes a bold step to try and define something, our first task is to try and say, but that's not good enough. Something's wrong with that. But I think it is important to have a starting point. And that starting point is here. And it says that persons with fewer opportunities in Erasmus Plus and ESC. So we're contextualizing this already. And then it goes in and starts to define the economic, social, cultural, geographic, or health reasons, or due to their background as a migrant, or other reasons such as disability, or educational difficulties, or for any other reason, which kind of covers everything else as well, that gives rise to discrimination or prevents somebody from actively participating. So there we go. That's our definition. That gives us a strong starting point to say what it is that we need to do. And what we do then is we go on to look at those potential barriers. And this is important, but it is only food for thought. Let's just say it's not exclusive, it's not limited to what you see, but it is food for thought, because I can tell you that when I started my professional career in the 1980s, we probably talked about 2 things in inclusion. We probably talked about gender equality and tackling racial discrimination. They were probably the 2 things that when I started in the 1980s. And now, I mean, I can't read this, it's very, very small, so I'm not being very inclusive, but I wanted to show you, this is an extract from a guide that's just been written, which is based upon the European Commission strategy. So you have the QR code, you'll be able to look at this in detail. But just to look at that, we talk about disability, we talk about health, we talk about barriers linked to education and training, access, participation, engagement. We talk about cultural differences, social barriers, economic barriers, barriers linked to discrimination, and the last one right down there, geographical barriers. We talked about it this morning, this idea of recognizing that by living in a rural community, might be a disadvantage in some way to your participation in life, in society, in education, in training, and so on. So all of these things are now considered under the umbrella that is inclusion. And we wanted to really open your mind up to that, because one of the things, of course, is that whenever we start to talk about Erasmus Plus and projects, it's important that we clarify who exactly we are looking to serve. Who are the beneficiaries? What is the point of doing this? If you don't know that audience, go home. A little bit rude, I know, but you get what I mean, that we are here for a reason, and that is to change something for the better. So, We also think about inclusion in terms of why, again, this is not limited to Erasmus+. There's a much bigger picture out there, and I wanted to really share that. And this was great. I mean, I don't know, I haven't been following the news, so I have no idea what's happening with who's doing what in the Commission. I'll probably check that later. But there was a wonderful statement in the State of the Union speech in 2023 by the then President Ursula von der Leyen, who said, "It is the moment to show the young generation that we can build a continent where you can be who you are, love who you want, and aim as high as you want." And surely that's a valid goal for us as a society to think about. And then it's complemented in a sense. So if that's the upper level goal, it's complemented by very specific strategies around LGBTIQ, those letters always confuse me, gender, strategy around the rights of persons with disabilities, the Anti-Racism Action Plan, and the Roma Strategic Framework. These are specifically listed within, but there are more. Don't limit yourself. And again, I thought, let's go one step further. That's Europe. Oh yeah, and then there's a 24 update. Anybody want to guess? I know many of the national agencies will know this one. In 24, we went one step further again in the Erasmus Plus program, and we started to make sure that anybody that wants to participate in Erasmus Plus is willing to sign up to common European values. That means promoting and respecting and acknowledging human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and human rights, and efforts to tackle discrimination on the ground. So this is a box that you must tick. If you don't tick this box, you cannot submit your funding proposal. It is important when we see how society is changing. We see a lot of movement to the right wing, a lot of things that try to tackle these European values in a way, and it's important to tick that box and to say, you know what, I'm on board with this, I'm happy, and what I'm doing is very much in favor. Okay, and then at the very top, we think bigger, we think to the globe, to the earth, to the whole world. What are the global challenges? Because what we do on the ground in our own world, in our own institution, has the potential to change that. And here you see the Sustainable Development Goals, and you think, but Paul, how does my project really help to do that? No poverty, zero hunger. There are some big goals, yes, and you might not directly contribute to those, but quality education, gender equality, reduced inequality, they're definitely a result of what you will do on the ground. These are things that need to be tackled locally to have impact at a higher level. So I'm just underlining the importance of the work that you will do. So very quickly, the panoramic view. I used to have like 100 slides I could deliver on this. I think I've limited it to 3 or 4. I want to remind you what the commitment is, why we are here. What is Erasmus+? Because Erasmus+ has one big underlying objective, which is to support, through lifelong learning, the educational, professional, and personal development of people. So this should be at the heart of what we do, at the core. And we do that in education, training, youth, and sport, in Europe and beyond. Contributing to all those wonderful things, and I won't read them out. But you see, you get the idea that it's about people. It's always about people. And we need to make sure that what we are doing has a clear audience. We talked, and we've heard about the horizontal objectives. In the midterm report, they talked about the success, the fact that people recognize that the inclusion and diversity, or access and inclusion priority was well embedded in the program. And we are starting to think about how these things complement each other in terms of being green, being digital, and encouraging a democratic and active participation. There are some other things that have emerged since the start of this program. Of course, COVID found its way into our lives, and we've all had to build a recovery strategy in industry, in society, and in education and training as well. And to build resilience so that if it happens again, we are ready. But also, we found ourselves facing difficulties around war and invasion, and it's no more evident, of course, than the one we saw in Ukraine. And the program itself has responded to that directly by prioritizing developments to look at how we respond to that. And so we have that as one of our workshops as well tomorrow. The key actions we've talked about, this terminology that we live and support, Erasmus+, I'm just interested to know, because we talk about newcomers and we talk about experienced players, and I class myself as an experienced player after 32 years. But just wave at me if you've got more than 5 years experience with Erasmus+. Just let me see. A couple of you, okay. But do you know what it stands for? Do you know what the acronym Erasmus actually stands for? After 32 years, I also forget. But I wrote it down. It just goes to show that you can easily forget, but it's written here. It's the European Community Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students. MUS, Mobility of University Students. Erasmus. We think we know everything, and we know nothing at all. It's easy to forget, so I'm just giving that very quick reminder of, key action 1, mobility. Key action 2, partnership, development, and collaboration. Key action 3, or KA3 as we're calling it, this is the policy development activities, looking to change things at a more systemic level. In key action 1, we've already done some work, and I'm going to make you get up on your feet in a second. We've already done some work, and I will talk a little bit about that in a moment, but I want to ask you one question. So I've asked you one question already, who are we talking about? What I want to know now is, what is it that we're already doing to include people? And when I say people, that's your own audiences of individual learners, specifically, or staff, it could be. But what I want to know, there are two aspects. You will have seen two trees at the back. Forgive my art ability, I watched a video on YouTube and basically had a go. But the idea is, we want to look at the things that we are good at and the things that we need to do better. So the things that we are good at should be the roots, the strengths. So at the bottom of the tree, I think everybody should get 2 post-it notes. You'll look on your tables, there will be post-its for everybody. Everybody should get 2 post-it notes. 1 post-it note will go to the bottom of the tree. What do I do well in terms of inclusion activities, ways of engaging, accessing, supporting, developing my audiences of learners and staff? What am I good at? What are my roots, my strengths? But we're always developing and always learning, so I need you to take 1 more post-it note and tell me, what could I do better? Where can I grow? So take a couple of minutes, get 2 post-it notes. When you've done it, get out of your seats, go to one of the trees at the left or right. Roots at the bottom, strengths. Areas for growth are the leaves of the trees. Let's do this, let's have a look. Let's put the green for the leaves. I know it's not on the screen, so ignore the colors there. Put the green for the leaves, the growth, and the other one is yellow, I think, for the roots and the strengths. I think green is always for leaves. And when you have it, go to the trees and put your stickers on. Can I repeat the colors? So green, leaves. And the leaves are growth. Green, leaves and growth. Yellow, roots and strengths. Any tree. And if you get the colors wrong, it doesn't matter. You know, we'll survive. So keep it nice and short, no essays, couple of words on each. There are no right answers, there are no wrong answers. It is just you reflecting on what you do. Okay, please put your post-its on the trees. They're such beautiful trees. I switched yours. I used the colors before I got here and saw what we had in the packet, you know? So we work with what we have. We're being green. Okay, I'm going to leave the trees for you to look at on the way out to see that as a whole, what is it that we do well? Because you know what you do well, but you can now learn what others are doing well. And what we want to do is to use this as you leave the room, have a look. And also we'll leave that there. We'll put the photographs, we'll share them on the Padlet as well. I'm not going to read them out. It's that time of day where I know that you stop listening halfway through anyway. So let's be realistic. I wanted you to reflect in the same way that we reflect on who are the audiences, which you could see. I wanted you to reflect and recognize in yourself, what do I do well? But also to think about what can I do better? Because the doing better is the development process, and it's what we're interested in. It's what we want you to collaborate on. Okay. We also thought about mobility specifically in 2023, and we started working with the guy who's going to speak after me on video is the Salto Education and Training. So I won't try and explain it in long terms because he's going to do that anyway. But I was asked by them to do a kind of short digital survey with national agencies for Erasmus Plus to think about what we do well and what we can do better. And we were thinking about the things that, in a sense, where it is important to think about inclusion. So the first thing we did was start to say, okay, how can we be inclusive? What do we need to consider in mobility? And mobility thinks about 3 stages, before, during, and after. Okay? Before mobility, what can we do? During mobility, what can we do? After mobility, what can we do? For those of you who don't do mobility, don't worry, I'm coming to you next. That's key action 2. But I wanted to start the journey because mobility is often the first footprint for many people in Erasmus+. And you can see I've highlighted a couple of things here, but you know, getting the right people involved, setting clear targets for the engagement of people with fewer opportunities or those with specific or additional needs. Making sure that the people that host visiting learners with additional needs are aware of this, are suitable and appropriate. Adapting the learning program to make it more inclusive. So those are the things we can do before. During, we think about things like accessible venues, inclusive induction and welcome events. This one is something that we might not think of. But when we plan even a simple icebreaker, we need to think, does this exclude somebody? So we really need to start thinking 360 degrees. And also, afterwards, feedback, promotion, engagement. And there is a fine balance to be struck between putting somebody on a wheelchair on the front of your magazine and using that as something that might stigmatize or label somebody. And you have to find that balance. And that's important. So this was the survey when we talked about what is important. And one of the things that was fed back, and this is important, because we were preparing to train the assessors how to look for projects who say they are inclusive and how to recognize that and to reward those who are doing it well. And what we found was everybody could tick the box, we are inclusive, but the level of detail provided was not enough. That actually there were certain things that were just not good enough. And that is something that's important for you to keep in mind when you're developing your projects. So I gave you here an example of real feedback. When we're talking around, and this is probably a mobility project, plans for recruitment and selection of participants in mobility are clearly outlined, and it's positive to see targets set for engaging learners with fewer opportunities and additional needs. However, no real insight is given. And that is the problem. If you start to define, if you say, I am inclusive, we are inclusive, what we are doing is very inclusive, you need to tell us how you are being inclusive. Because without that, you will not score the required numbers to get funding. And this applies to Key Action 1 and Key Action 2. And we've encapsulated this in a couple of clouds. This is kind of green. So these are things that were felt to be well addressed. People were good at raising awareness, identifying specific sets of funding that could be used to support mobility participants, setting clear goals, describing their ambitions. But when we looked at what wasn't done well, it was direct engagement, adapting programs, specifically using the monies that they had secured for this additional work, active promotion, having a clear strategy for inclusion in terms of delivering the programs. So what I'm saying from a mobility point of view is that you probably know what you want to do. You're very good at ticking a box and saying, yes, we're inclusive. And you probably have something behind that. But unless you write that down, you will not be rewarded for that. And the assessors now know what they are looking for, and it's your job to describe that. So that's in a mobility world. So let's think then about Key Action 2, which is small-scale partnerships and cooperation partnerships. The first thing we did at the start of this program was to think, how can we be more inclusive? You talked about this, Nick. How can we be more inclusive to those who don't participate regularly in these kinds of partnerships and collaborations? And we created an action specifically for those who don't engage very often. Key Action 2.10, or small-scale partnerships. The idea is to allow somebody to take that first footprint into Erasmus+. So that's great. The goals are not too big. The application form is a little bit less stressful. Some of the questions have been removed to make it easier. But if you go for the bigger ones, for the cooperation partnerships, there are many questions to be answered. And if you don't answer them well, the time invested is wasted, because you are in a competitive application process. So you need to think about that. Tomorrow, we will work with you in the 3 groups to show you what you can do. But that was institutional inclusion, making sure that small, medium, and large organizations can participate in the program. But thinking then about strategic inclusion, we have these horizontal priorities that we mentioned for digital and green transition, for access and inclusion, and active participation. We also have field-specific priorities, and if I look at VET, vocational education and training, we have flexible vocational education and training, learning accumulation. Not everybody can study full-time or immediately. Some people have to take a break, and how do they come back and benefit from that continued learning? We want quality-assured VET. We want VET that is innovative and that delivers change and is future-focused. But we also want people to recognize the value of a learning pathway that is vocational in nature. And finally, and it's a priority, a specific priority, how are we responding to the changing world, to the war in Ukraine, and how are we dealing and responding to and actively working with these new citizens in our society? So these are the challenges. This is strategic inclusion. And you could say to me, Paul, but isn't that just kind of the same? Our inclusion is inclusion is inclusion. And I would say probably. Some of it is. But there are a couple of things that I want to point out before I come to a close. And this is that every application for Key Action 2 funding, which is bigger money, you know, it's either 30 or 60,000 in the small scale, or 120, 250, or all the way up to 400,000 in the cooperation partnership. For that money, you have to work harder, you're more competitive, there are people out there that want that money instead of you. So to be convincing, some of the things around inclusion, the areas where you need to include that would be under the 4 headings that you are judged in. So under relevance, we want to know, who are you working with? Think back to that question that we asked. Who are we including? How do they align with your daily work? Is this somebody that you regularly work with? The ones I'm least convinced by are people who feel that they're doing society a favor by coming and addressing somebody else's problem. That's not what we're interested in. We want somebody to change the work that they do on a regular basis. This is important. And of course, what are the development needs? How have you identified what needs to change? You describe the audience, you describe the needs, you describe the process of identifying those needs. And it needs to be needs in a transnational collaboration for Key Action 2. When you design something, from a project design point of view, we want to know how you will directly engage, identify, and work with the key individuals that will benefit. And if it's staff, as a primary beneficiary to deliver change in education, to better engage learners on the front line, who are these staff? How do you identify them? When will they be engaged and with what purpose? So all of this is important in your design. In terms of the partnership, again, the least convincing are those who talk about, we will involve 100 learners in 5 countries, but I have no idea where the learners come from because they don't deliver training. So the idea of making a direct link between the objectives of the organization, what they do regularly, and/or how they can access, either directly or indirectly, the relevant learning audiences. And finally, impact. If you cannot describe and foresee a strong, positive legacy for one or more audiences, then why are you doing it? So you should know in advance what you would like to deliver as a legacy, as an impact. And that should be clear, not only who the audiences are, what the legacy will be, but how do you know when you've got there? What measures will you use to measure that impact? And these are not limited to inclusion and diversity. These are questions we ask everybody. But if you're doing something that is working with audiences that have special or specific or additional needs, these aspects need to be very clear. So finally, my final slide is to remind you that all of that is about setting the scene, European level goals, program level goals, global goals, knowing your audience, knowing what you do well, and applying that within the program to what we will talk about over these 3 themes that we've already discussed. So I won't read them out. With that in mind, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for a friendly introduction to Erasmus+. How do you feel about it now? Afraid? No. Who's afraid of the big bad Erasmus? Nobody. You see? No, nobody's afraid. Excellent. So, friendly indeed introduction of Erasmus. There is a big Erasmus program guide that you need to make friends with, so that's another story. But either way, it can get friendly once you learn its language. So, and that's why you're here, partly also to learn your way through the complicated things and language and concepts and demands and requirements and so on. But we will have tomorrow to go more in depth into this and to get everything as friendly as possible for you. Now, in addition to national agencies, which are also represented here, we have some other entities which are out there to help us, and those are the Salto Resource Centers. There is one Salto Resource Center which is focused on inclusion and diversity. It's, I think, the newest one, although it's already 1.5 years old, so that makes it like, 7 years in human age. Let's think about it like this. They are not here with us, but their spirit and their video is here with us. So we will have a brief video from Josip Lusha, who is the leader of the Salto Inclusion and Diversity Resource Center, and he's going to tell us about what Salto Inclusion and Diversity can do for us. So let's learn about this also, and in the end of this session, we will talk a little bit more about how we organize tomorrow. So let's see if we can have the video from Salto, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you can hear me well. I would first of all like to thank Franca and the organizers for inviting me to take part in the event. And of course, I would like to wish a warm welcome to all the participants on site. I hope that you will enjoy the upcoming program and that the event will fulfill all of its aims and objectives. My name is Josip Lusha, and I work at the Agency for Mobility and EU Programs, which is the national body responsible for the implementation of the Erasmus Plus program in Croatia. In my today's presentation, I will briefly present the work of the Salto Resource Center for Inclusion and Diversity in the field of education and training, which has been since 2022 run by the agency that I work at. So I will now start sharing my presentation. I hope that works. Okay, so I will start off by explaining what the Salto acronym stands for. Salto actually stands for Support Advanced Learning and Training Opportunities. And it is actually a center or a supporting body that is established by the European Commission, and its aim is to help improve the quality and impact of both the Erasmus Plus program at a systemic level and Erasmus Plus projects at national levels. There is a total of 11 Salto resource centers across Europe, as I will explain later. And their role is to offer expertise, to develop resources, and to offer information and training activities in specific areas for Erasmus Plus national agencies across Europe. This support may come in various forms, so Saltos organize or participate in courses, seminars, workshops, cooperation and partnership building activities, etc. And as already mentioned, the Croatian Erasmus Plus agency has been running the Salto Resource Center for Inclusion and Diversity in the field of education and training since 2022. Speaking of the Salto network, I mentioned earlier how there is a total of 11 Salto Resource Centers active across Europe, and each of them is hosted by one Erasmus Plus agency. As you can see, 6 of these Saltos are youth-oriented Saltos, meaning that they focus on implementation of activities that are relevant for young people and youth workers, while 2 Saltos focus on the fields of education and training. Among them is the Salto that I'm presenting today, Salto on Inclusion and Diversity in Education and Training. And finally, 3 more Saltos are cross-sectoral, meaning that they implement activities that target both audiences from the youth sector and the education and training sector. And with regard to their scope of activities, you can see that some of these Saltos are thematically oriented. That is to say, they focus on some of the priorities or features of the Erasmus Plus program, such as inclusion and diversity, green, digital, participation and information, etc. While others are geographically oriented, meaning that they focus on implementation of activities in certain geographical areas, for example, Eastern European and Caucasus, Mediterranean, Southeast Europe, etc. If you are interested in further exploring the Salto landscape, on this slide you can also find a link to an interactive Salto map with some additional information on the work done by each of the Salto resource centers. Okay, so back to our Salto Resource Center for Inclusion and Diversity. What is it that we do? How do we do it? And for whom do we do it? Well, our Salto provides knowledge, resources, and support related to promotion of inclusion and diversity in the Erasmus Plus program. So our aim is to increase involvement of participants with fewer opportunities, and in general to strengthen the inclusive dimension of Erasmus Plus projects. How do we do that? We do that by developing tools, by developing guidelines, reports, creating courses, promoting success stories, organizing network meetings, etc. And we do it for staff employed at Erasmus Plus agencies, but also for beneficiaries in 4 fields. So in the fields of school education, in the field of vocational education and training, in the field of higher education, and in the field of adult education. With regard to our activities, I've already mentioned how one strand of our activities targets national agencies, whereas the other strand targets, let's say, potential applicants and beneficiaries. I will first provide a quick overview of some of the most relevant activities in both strands. So when it comes to support to national agencies, we have been organizing regular meetings of agency staff, that is to say inclusion and diversity officers. The aim of these meetings is to facilitate space for learning, for networking, to give participants the opportunity to exchange ideas, in general to build capacity of NA staff so that they can provide better support to organizations implementing or seeking to implement Erasmus Plus projects in their countries. Another activity was the mentorship service that we provided to Erasmus Plus agencies related to their inclusion and diversity strategies. So the European Commission encouraged Erasmus Plus agencies to develop their inclusion and diversity strategies. We provided support to national agencies either in the process of development or update of these inclusion and diversity strategies. And if you're interested in finding out what's going on at this policy or strategic level, you can check the repository of inclusion and diversity strategies that is available on our website. When it comes to activities targeting beneficiaries and applicants, I have tried to single out some of the resources that I find relevant for the audience of this event. So first up are the guidelines on how to develop ID strategies. This is a publication with tips and tricks for successful development of inclusion and diversity strategies. This publication was primarily developed for Erasmus Plus agencies, but this publication can be used by a variety of other organizations that are seeking to strengthen the inclusive dimension of their work. So if your organization is interested in doing something like that, feel free to check out these guidelines. We have also prepared a publication on digital accessibility. It is basically an interactive checklist with guidelines and tips and tricks for persons creating and posting website content, so that this content remains accessible to a variety of different target groups that otherwise may experience difficulties accessing this content. Here it is important to note that this is not intended for web developers. It is for persons who are creating and posting website content. So I believe that some of you may find this resource useful as well. Another resource that we developed deals with the topic of organizing inclusive events. It actually provides guidelines on what to consider when organizing inclusive events, so as to remove potential barriers that may hinder or prevent some participants from participating on equal footing with other participants. Regardless whether you're a national agency or a school or other type of organization, it is very likely that you're organizing a lot of events, and a resource like this is quite useful in that regard. Finally, we've also created a publication on how to establish a network of inclusion and diversity ambassadors. It is basically a roadmap with steps detailing the process. This was, again, primarily developed for national agencies based on the Croatian example, because the Croatian NA established such a network of successful beneficiaries who promote inclusion and diversity in the Erasmus Plus program. But I think it is, again, useful for other organizations as well who are interested in setting up such a network and improving its inclusive efforts in this way. Also available on our website are resources developed by other organizations and institutions, but that we find are either suitable or relevant for the field of inclusion and diversity. Among them is the Inclusive Communication Manual, developed by the Erasmus Student Network. So if you're interested in finding out more about being inclusive while communicating, make sure to check out this comprehensive manual. And among the resources offered by our website is also a publication developed by the Lithuanian Erasmus Plus agency. It describes opportunities and financial mechanisms that the Erasmus Plus program offers to participants with fewer opportunities, and it gives concrete examples of how these can be used. The publication is available in English, so feel free to have a look. And finally, it is also worth to have a look at the publication prepared by the Eurydice Network. It deals with the topic of how to promote inclusion and diversity in schools in Europe. So I believe it is a topic relevant for many participants of this event. Some other useful tools that are available on our website include the ID temperature check tool, primarily if you're interested in self-evaluating the inclusive efforts of your organization, and also useful primarily for the field of higher education is the Erasmus Plus Grant Simulator, which calculates the grant amount entitled to students depending on the activity and the country. And finally, I will provide a quick overview of some of our activities planned for 2024 that might be, of course, of interest to participants of this event. So together with the Erasmus Plus agency from Slovenia, we are working on development of a tool called Inclusion Index. It is planned to be an easy-to-use tool for schools to, first of all, evaluate, but also enhance the inclusive dimension of their Erasmus Plus mobilities. So in a way, a self-evaluation tool, but also a tool with tips and tricks on how to better organize Erasmus Plus mobilities and strengthen the inclusive dimension of Erasmus Plus projects in the fields of school education and vocational education and training. In addition to that, we are also teaming up with other SALTO resource centers to develop a publication on horizontal priorities of the Erasmus Plus program. So this publication will provide clear and concise guidance on what to keep in mind and how to successfully address the 4 horizontal priorities of the Erasmus Plus program. Furthermore, we are also planning to develop guidelines or detailed description of the steps in the process of appointment of inclusion and diversity officers at higher education institutions. I already mentioned that inclusion and diversity officers exist at each Erasmus Plus agency. In these guidelines, we will focus on the process of appointment of inclusion and diversity officers at higher education institutions, but the universal design of this resource will make it equally applicable to other fields as well. So if your organization is interested in establishing a post of inclusion and diversity officer, these guidelines will definitely be a valuable asset. And finally, we intend to enrich our database of success stories through addition of new Erasmus Plus projects that were particularly successful in addressing inclusion and diversity as a horizontal priority of the program. So this would be all from me. It's a pity I could not join you live, but in case you have any questions, feel free to get in touch using the contacts on the slide, or simply pass on your question to Franca. She can forward it to our team. And of course, for more information on everything that I discussed, make sure to go to www.saltoinclusion.eu. Thank you again for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the event.
Great. Great. So thank you to Josip for sending all this information. As you can see, there are lots of resources out there. So it becomes a question of finding your way through them, and that's yet another challenge. But there are some plans about this, and Nick will tell you in the last day of our event about somehow how to navigate this complicated thing. A couple of more things from us at the end of this long afternoon, especially for those who have traveled this morning. I can imagine it's been a very, very long day. If this is the moment when we need that slide number 14, thank you very much. So tomorrow, we will not have a plenary session. We will be directly in the working groups. You might have wondered why some of you have orange badges, and some of you have green, and some of you have red and blue. So this is the moment you find out. The blue ones are for the national agencies, who will be divided among the 3 working groups. So they are there to assist you, to guide you, to respond to your questions, to help you design eligible project ideas. In group number 1, we will have people with the red badges, am I right? And they will be in Mascani room. You will find it, but just remember the name, Mascani room, red badges, and the topic will be vet mobility for cognitive, sensory, and physical disabilities. You will be guided by Angela. Is she here? Angela is here. I will also be in that group. We will have some good practices, and we will also have NA staff, Valentina, Laura, and Veronica, right? So they will be with us. In the second group, you will be in room Puccini, remember that. You have orange badges, and you will be talking about refugees, inclusion of refugees, especially Ukrainians. You will be led by Nick, and also have Nadia and Georgina, who will be there to assist you from the national agencies. Exactly. And the third group will be here in the big room. You will be guided by Paul, and you will have Loredana, Rossano, and Franca here to assist you. In case you get lost, you remember this big room and you will be guided to the smaller rooms, right? Because this is usually what happens. Don't forget to put yourself up on the Padlet if you want to be found by the people in this room. You know, don't say secret. If you're the best project designer or project worker or psychologist, you want to be found, right? So put yourself up on the Padlet. We thank you very much for everything, and very, very important announcement, the dinner is going to be served at 7:30 instead of 8 o'clock. Okay, so very important to remember, dinner is going to be served in the restaurant at 7:30. Thank you very much for a long, long day today, and see you tomorrow in the small groups. Enjoy the rest of the evening. 9 a.m., they whisper, sharp.